we'll do figure drawings. The it's not my preference to use Pinterest for figure drawing. However, this might be our best option as to finding a decent variety of poses while also sort of ensuring that some amount of curation has gone in. Clearly this is a lot of like bikini pics, and you know, I apologize if some inappropriate material slips through the cracks, but I think we're going to be okay here. Just gotta watch out for the AI stuff. That's extremely prevalent on Pinterest, and it's obviously nothing we want to support. So we'll see. So some of this, this is AI art, but this does not look like it is. So tricky. Anyway. If I click this... Thanks, Pinterest, for sucking. But, there we go. Let's try this. Male combat pose. Like this looks like AI. We're going to avoid that. But this looks like a decent reference. We can start there. Right now we're just trying to make the best use of a bit of unstructured time. This would be one of those circumstances where I'd feel a little lost today. Without the current practice, essentially, of becoming comfortable sharing. Even a little bit of weakness. Yeah, this is a good pose. So there's a few things going on here with this guy that are cool. You know, we always start with the line of action, then I sort of indicate the major masses of the abdomen and the pelvis. And I just want to draw enough to get a sense of their orientation. And they don't have to be perfectly to scale. That sort of works itself out as long as we follow all the steps. Hey Danny, what's going on? I cleaned up the stream a little bit. I don't know, I've changed some things probably. I don't know if anything's gonna work. We'll see, but things are a little different. And this is another day where my skills are a little underutilized, and the depression that causes might inspire a little bit of rot. And today I'm gonna try and set a good example and just practice art instead. This pose is doing a lot of things that I like it when poses do, where the shoulders are clearly at a different angle than the pelvis, and the chest is clearly pointing in a different direction from the pelvis, both, you know, at an angle and like up versus down, right? And then the head is clearly pointing this way in space, you know? So you get all these mixes of things. We've got this leg clearly coming forward, and this leg clearly going back. It's all working, and we just want to represent that. Get those legs in there first. They're larger forms than the arms, and they carry and distribute the weight way more. I'm going to try and not make such liberal use of the undo button. It's not about perfection. It's hard for me sometimes. But it's good medicine to practice owning your strokes, I guess. Stroke discipline is it's something I need a lot of help with. This guy is sort of buff and skinny at the same time, which is cool. So you can see a lot of the forms. Oh, poop. I meant to make this a timed pose. I guess I goofed on that. But I'll put a timer on in a second. I have a interval timer I can put on. Let's see what that does. Okay, 2 minutes. It's barely any time at all. This will prevent me from getting too precious with it. Little arrows in the way. It's okay. Just draw over it for a second. And then this big fun thing he's got. Some sort of staff. Just loosely indicate it. My strokes went a little wild. That's okay. They're real strokes. Anyway, I don't know if the figure drawing streams add up to much entertainment value, but they're good for me to do for practice, and good for everybody else too. And if you've ever been to art school, you'll be very familiar with having to go with them. Okay, that reset. So that was 2 minutes just since I started it. Let's go another 2 minutes and add a little more stuff to this, because I do kind of like the pose. cannot read. I am doing well. The chat where it pops up. Hold on. Oh, Namina, how are you doing? I adjusted a lot of things, and of course my my eyesight is fading as I'm an old man now. But I'm doing well. I hope you're doing great. Yeah, we're braving the wild west of Pinterest figure drawing references right now. And on this occasion, I'm taking a rare moment to set a good example as opposed to, you know, drinking too much wine and ranting about stuff all night. And it's no fun, but it's good to take a break from the debaucher every once in a while and, you know, eat your spinach. It's like a healthy thing. Healthy for me, at least. Okay, that's about as important or, you know, identifies as much of the important stuff in a figure drawing as I think I'd recommend. Set that aside, do another one. You say, I'm doing well, I'm trying to hide from the sun. Yeah, good man. Should be avoiding wine at the moment. I need to stay hydrated in this heat. You don't have to share your location, but I'm curious what your time zone is. Right now it's 3 a.m. 3 p.m. in LA. Here's a fun. This could be a good reference. Maybe we'll alternate boy, girl, boy, girl. In Washington State, it's about 90-ish. Ooh, that's too much. It's hot here too. I reset my studio, and I've got lights burning again. I neglected to be proactive about the air conditioner. It's all very problematic for me to have failed to have done so. But a little bit of sweat will probably do me some good. I've been dehydrated myself, but I've got water here to replace, so. All right, everybody take a drink of water and save your work. You know what I forgot to do is pause the old. I hate the way it does that. Okay, let's see here. Pause syncing. Thank you. It's not like anything bad is going to pop up on the screen. It's just I don't want like it's like someone like you have company unexpected and you're like, shit, you know, it's just a bunch of dishes in the sink. You can see how unorganized my shit is, and I don't like that. Here. Super unorganized. Yeah, there we go. Just making a project folder for this. It's the 25th. Man, oh man. All right. Well, Namina, you should probably organize your PC. Yeah. I'm like a hoarder when it comes to all my old project files. My parents did not instill in me the discipline of keeping a tidy room. I suppose that's the occupational hazard of being creative professionals, sort of like preoccupied with their own shit. They're almost borderline hoarders themselves, but not hoarders, but I see plenty of stuff at their house that I'd throw away. I'm sure that's normal, but yeah, I'm the same way as probably most people are, where I have a bunch of shit on my desktop, then I want to clean it up, so then I just stick it in a folder called desktop crap. And then I've got a nice fresh desktop, and I load it up with crap. And then the same thing happens, so I put all that crap into a new folder called desktop crap, but it put the old folder into the new folder. And so I just end up with these like stratified layers. It's like a time capsule and a time capsule and a time capsule. And all the stuff in there is relevant to old projects, but nothing relevant to now. So it doesn't feel like there's any advantage to dedicating time to it now. But of course, if I don't, it just piles up more and more and more. Here, I'm making a decision about you can't tell from the photo because the angle is so far away and flat, like there's no perspective on it really, which makes a cool reference. But I think when it's up to me, I like to depict the limbs as clearly going forward in space or backward in space, clearly going left, clearly going right, clearly going, basically not just being flat, but having a choice and a trajectory in space that isn't ambiguous. So when I can, and this is an opportunity to take something ambiguous and make a clear choice about it. This leg clearly coming forward, this leg clearly going back. Let's make a choice. This hip clearly being higher than this one. And part of the reason for that is well, that's an interesting... So she's wearing ballet flats. I don't know much about ballet. Other than those shoes look difficult. That might make an interesting subject for figure drawing. Do like a ballet series. Little known fact, ballet equals strong toes. I think I know that the rigidity of the shoes is something that you sort of like, you work it down or you like break them in or something like that, right? I think I saw that in like a documentary. Was it Black Swan or something? Cool movie. We must be careful. We must make sure that we preserve the clothing that is on these figures, because Twitch is extremely sensitive to, I don't know, it's a hazard for drawing well, but they'll pop me for having nudity on my stream if I don't self-censor a little bit. It's happened before. Set aside that. They have their own restrictions to art sometimes, yeah. And I've seen people get away with stuff, so I don't know what made them pick on me that day, but a 3-day suspension, you know, I guess if you never get suspended, you're playing it too safe, right? Here, this is a pose I like. Oh, this is fun. Somebody posted a piece of figure drawing here. I wonder if that's something they like. Poster art. Everybody gets whacked. It's just how their systems work. I feel like, frankly, I feel like Twitch is their own worst enemy sometimes. It's sort of like it's a platform everybody wants to support, and then it... Oh, look, I've got that lovely thing right there. Can I make that go away? How do I do that? Oh, shit. What did that just do? Come on. No, don't do that. Christ. So bad at this. Okay. Okay, back to this. Should go back. Apologies for that. Like I said, I restructured stuff, but like I'm still working out the bugs, but it's like you can't find out where the bugs are until you run it, so just gotta do it. And I just liked having the sun in my eye. Yeah, it's a little silly to what I've done here is like a workaround hack, but the I just gotta get a dedicated good camera for the stream, because this camera is from my iPad. But when I put back the system, I couldn't find the cable that connected it, and so it's the weird workaround that isn't working very well. Okay, everybody save your work. All right. We'll reference this pose. Here, I'm going to actually adhere to a timer this time. We'll do 5 minutes. 5-minute interval timer. Okay, so it's counting down. I always kind of start with the head. It's like a fun. You need something to start, right? So start with the head, and then I try to just draw it like that, a big line of action, and then along the line of action, it's like you're putting together a constellation a little bit. Because like a constellation, it's extremely abstract, or it should be. Like, if you draw it too rigidly, it's tricky. It's like when you go to you go to assemble some like IKEA stuff, and it warns you, it's like, don't over tighten until the end. Like, if you tighten everything in the beginning, you're going to end up screwing yourself, because you'll be rigidly committing yourself to angles that won't connect later on when you want them to, when you need them to. Quick gestures of the legs. A little bit better like that. This leg is flat, and this leg is on its toes. I do like to think of like the body's line of action, but then each limb essentially has its own line of action as well that is subordinate to the main line of action. And we want all that to work. When everything's working in harmony, you just have these really elegant forms that feel like they reinforce each other. They relate to each other, they harmonize. This leg clearly going away from camera. This leg clearly coming towards camera. Making decisions. A lot of times when people invent poses, they forget to make those decisions, and you just end up straddling. That gets you in trouble later on because you have mixed perspectives. Almost like a person was being drawn from multiple vantage points at once. That's not possible. But people will do that, not quite realizing that's what they're doing. And I think often when people do get lost with the stuff that they're drawing, that can play a role. Using the line of action and the methods that I'm sort of demoing, you could tell that even throughout these varied poses, I'm, at least for the sake of this demo, I'm trying to be disciplined about it. Oh, 40 seconds left. So 5-minute poses go by quick, but doing good here. Let's just remember to put on a little bit of a bra strap and a bikini line or something here. Actually got some booty shorts or whatever, but you can see like the pose is off to a good start, right? This is it's a an exercise in discipline, I think, for me. I think it's normal to see a part of something that is exciting and you want to draw it, so you do, but then you realize, okay, it's like, okay, you drew the, it's like, oh, that model has beautiful hair, so you draw the hair amazingly, and then you're like, oh man, I drew the hair before I drew the chin, and now nothing matches up, and I can't reconcile the hair with the chin, and I'm angry about it. It's a fun pose. One thing I don't... This is an issue. So... We'll proceed as if all is well, but frankly, Pinterest is not... It's not like a curated site. Anybody could just upload this, and you'd never really know if the the model gave permission for it, or, these are sort of problematic ideas, where the world is just sort of a free-for-all. It's just the world we live in, I guess, now, but... I really do recommend people find their references through curated and sort of reputationally intact sources. Yeah, it's when I work, today's not a good example because I'm using Pinterest, but the sites I do recommend, at least as far as like nude figure drawing, it's professional models. They're paid like the industry standard. Contracts are signed, and everybody's in the knowledge about what's happening. That's especially important if we're doing like nude figure drawing and stuff like that. And it's like, it's not like me paying a model, for instance. Even that, I'm like, there's been talk among my artist groups about doing. It's like I'm only willing to do it like through a mediated company, like a modeling agency, because if it's like person to person, it feels like you need a little bit of chaperoning, I guess, with that sort of thing. I'm not personally comfortable with like messaging a model and being like, hey, here's money, send me nude photos. I mean, that's potentially not a good look, right? So it's good to get it from a reputable source that that everybody's knowledgeable of what's happening, and it's got to be a business transaction. You could see why some in the past, even in Los Angeles, it was known that essentially a lot of figure drawing back in the day had to be done in sort of like in a clandestine way. There were art instructors and artists that, for their livelihoods, had to hire models, had to use photography, had to portray the body nude and stuff, and they someone's later down the road, someone's fiance or we're talking about in the like 50s and 60s, but some pretty famous art teachers were like brought up on like pandering charges and stuff. Of course, whatever. Probably convicted, I don't know. But, nothing anybody would bat an eyelash at now, but at the time, you couldn't be like an artist model without that being problematic. It's a different world now. It's like the wild, wild west. Yeah, it is strange times. But it was strange times back then, too. I feel like I'm doing decently at... shit, I didn't activate the timer. Maybe it doesn't matter, but... And this is one of those poses that is tricky for me. I'm often saying on my streams that if the angle of the shoulders is the same as the angle of the waist or the hips, then it's bad because it looks like the body's going to fall over, but here it doesn't. And so it kind of has me... I guess what we're really just... So what are we talking about? Is it... So it's like I'm doing this and I'm studying the exceptions to my own rules. Okay, but here we can make a clear decision. The humerus is coming towards us in space and then going away, back towards the head. There's the spine. The lighting on this figure's nice. Maybe we'll try some shading. Now clearly picking, making decisions about exactly where the edges of these forms are. So it's not just fuzzy and ambiguous, it's pretty clear. Now, the light is going at a direction that's a little tricky for me, but I'll try it anyway. Being left-handed, it's a little harder for me to shade with this tool with the direction that the light is. But not impossible. I just might have to crank my shoulder over and tack it. Well, I've been doing a new experiment this week. Something I thought I'd never do, but I joined TikTok. It's like I'm being sheepish about it. But I'm a little surprised to see that the it hasn't been that toxic or anything weirdly yet. People are a lot more receptive to my my art than I quite expected them to be. So that's cool. That's interesting. Again, chalk it up to reality being very different than my expectations on something in which I had a lot of assumptions. Okay, I need to make this bigger because I want to see the chat and it's like I can't see it very well. So I'm going to embiggen what's happening here. Can I do that? Make this bigger and then... this. You'll have to get me much bigger first. Yeah, I'm sure at some point, at a certain threshold, toxicity sets in, no matter what the platform. In fact, on Instagram, I had good growth for a while, and then it was then it really sort of just plateaued. I don't know, it's like, did I just sort of reach the edge of my audience? I'm like, I doubt it. But now what's happening is a bunch of like, maybe it's just something new or silly in the algorithm they have to tweak. But, you know, I'm getting like, woohoo, you know, someone's friending me, and it's like, it's an OnlyFans bot, basically. And I'm like, again, very cringy, strange times. Okay, let's find a new reference. These certainly are fun poses. There's no substitute for the in-class experience, but these are a decent backup option. Let's try this guy. That's fun. Do something different. Oh, it's blocked there. All right. It was unavoidable. I really wish there was a better way of managing bots. Yeah. It's amazing the headwinds of the enshittification. It's like for a long time in my career, the idea of like, well, sort of doing fan art and, you know, sharing it. It just didn't seem very professional. And then like professionals started doing it, and then finding success with it. But by that time, I was already well established as a behind the scenes artist, and it wasn't something that I could prioritize, given that I had plenty of real work, you know, sitting in. But now, where the work is it's a little bit too scarce for my comfort. Like for instance, today I barely had enough work to, you know, to buy a meal, and so it's scary. So I've got downtime, so I'm like tweaking my OBS and I'm figuring out, you know, we'll do a stream. You know, I'm posting on TikTok or whatever. But now it is like, I'm like, okay, here's some followers, but like, is this person real? Like, am I like feeling the love from robots? It's like, what's going on? It's the Lord of the Rings analogy being like, they left those faraway lands to come to Middle Earth, and then, or whatever. It's like I feel a little bit like I missed those good boats to be on. Now the seas are stormy, and when I get there, it's like taken over by orcs or something. It's quite evil. All the upside is totally feels like that ship has sailed a bit. It's an entirely different world even than, and this has always been, it was difficult for me to, when my kid got sick, this is thankfully, you know, many years ago now, but, you know, we were desperate for help, and then because social media like didn't suck as bad in 2018, like it was starting to get there. People were being like, Facebook isn't what it used to be, it's toxic, you know, but they're like, oh, but Twitter or Instagram's better or whatever. But my friends and family and clients and associates, we were all still sort of like passive Facebook users. So that when I needed to make announcements regarding like, yo, we've got a GoFundMe, we really need help, you know, I was able to get like traction with those posts as a, just as a, like a civilian, not as like a professional artist. You know, and the GoFundMe worked, and it saw us through some very difficult financial times, and I was obviously happy about that. But now I am very concerned that should the same thing, like let's say something horrible happens and we're back in that same boat, I don't feel like I have the same confidence that my friends and family are as active on Facebook, where they would notice that sort of thing, where they would be as caught up or regularly visiting and seeing updates and things like that, or knowing the situation we were in. I feel like people are repudiating, and for good reason, because of the shittiness of social media. They are sort of being like, okay, well, I'm turning away from this fake stuff. And this is the evil of like the AI and the enshittification and the spamminess, is the real good that social media can do is drowning out the voices, or sorry, it's being drowned out by the grifters and the, you know, the AI sloppers, and I don't know. I'm grateful that things worked out then. I just don't know what we would do again in the same situation. And that makes me feel bad for people now who are in these situations, but I don't know. They don't. It's that lifeline might not be there in the same way, you know. Okay, so this pose is obviously super rough because the guy's gigantic. He can't stand under his own weight mostly, and there's a lot of clothes happening. But something about the picture compels me to draw it. So let's give it a shot. Perhaps because it's such a departure, you know. Is there a line of like there's no obvious line of action. The gesture is very compressed. It's sort of like this gross vegetabliness. And I should say, because it happened last time and it might happen this time, there might be weird bugs that are happening with the stream. I haven't quite worked everything out. So if it feels like Twitch drops off, the issue's probably on my end, because the streams have been interrupted a couple times since I've set up the dual streaming. And if that happens, please just, you know, if you want to, just refresh the stream. It should just go back to normal. Maybe we'll do one more after this, and then we'll switch to something else, because I actually have a couple of projects that might be of interest. When I draw eyes on my figures, it's probably something... It's not a secret I've been keeping to myself. Pretty much in all of these poses, it's really just a wedge. Just like this. You know those mathematical symbols? Or even just like an emoji, right? So like... like a smile. So you can see here, it's just a wedge. Two little lines. And then within that, I'll sort of indicate some things. But even if it's just something like that, it's kind of better than drawing eyeballs. It's certainly faster, and with a sketch, you have the power to sort of compel a person's imagination to do the rendering for you. There's a certain kind of appeal, maybe similar to what they do in like jazz music. Not that I know much about music, but you know, in jazz, it's like you can hear the notes that they don't play, I guess is the one way of describing it. To be This guy's quite a specimen, but he's owning it, and I guess that's the appeal for me. Your mind kind of can see, like, okay, this guy's, you know, he's got a name like Maurice. He runs a dry cleaner, right? But it's really a front for a mafia, you know, a mafia or a syndicate, right? They'll there's like a loan shark operating out the business. A couple of goons, yeah. Big belly.
No parent should have to bury their child.
Pretty decent likeness. In commercials, the work that I do, you never draw. You never have the opportunity to draw a figure like this. Just never happens. And I certainly don't get the practice, so. But there's an opportunity here to make a study of form and light and weight. Make artistic decisions. Some sort of made a couple mistakes on this, but nothing dramatic. Yeah, he's like the penguin's dad or something. He does look like the or like Deckard or whatever the corrupt cop. What would it be? You put a fedora on him. Right? Yeah. So far not a bad page of studies. should put up the... I'll do it later, but yeah, it's too much of a jinx to promote something I'm very out of the habit of posting to. But I have a figure drawing dedicated Instagram that I want to be more proactive about keeping alive. I've been turning it over in my head. It's like sort of, you know, I do need to figure out ways of, I don't know. I'm not sure if what I'm thinking about doing is it for me? Is it for the benefit of younger artists? Is it all of the above? Figure drawing is one of those things, it harkens back to what I was talking about before, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's extremely important when you want to get to a certain level of proficiency as an artist, like especially with storyboarding, especially if storyboarding for like live action, or where you're essentially compelled to draw sometimes hundreds of figures in a day with little to no reference. You need to have fluency with how to draw the human body, and figure drawing lessons are great at practicing and learning. But because it's sort of a given that it's like a mountain of anatomy that you have to study. It's the nude figure. These things are sort of, despite the amount of information online, the quality figure drawing studies are, I think, still sort of difficult to come across. I'm like, okay, I don't want to, there's a need for them. I don't know if it's quite the same thing as demand, but I do feel like there is a need for this sort of demonstration and education. And truth be told, you don't get really great figure drawing education at a lot of art schools. Even good art schools sometimes don't have the quality that there should be. Maybe if I make a small contribution like this, I'll redeem myself somehow. But even if not, it's still great practice for me. But if I do this more habitually, I think it'll be good for me to go back to posting it on my figure drawing Instagram. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do one more study, one more pose. This all looks like AI, except for this, maybe. Oh man, you just can't tell anymore. Interesting peeps. Can I just go back to here? Maybe this one? All right. Oop. Quick save. Everybody take a sip of water. Did a good job doing a full hour of figure drawing. That's always good for me, no matter what. interesting. It's a very tricky line of action. This model is extremely petite. Some extreme angles. Very tricky to... Yeah, very tricky to feel confident. Just sort of defaulting. I have to check a lot of stuff here. My first... Where I put the line of action is not necessarily correct. Her abdomen in this photo, it's like a C. Right? And the way our minds work is we straighten and correct things so that they become easier for us to... They become more familiar and less strange. Yeah, get the hydration in. The problem with our minds correcting things automatically is that when we then try to draw, we end up kind of drawing the corrected thing. Except our minds sort of halfway, they correct it enough to sort of recognize what's going on. And then even if we are able to concentrate on what we're seeing, if we don't have practice drawing the work in the her foot positioning is interesting, certainly a more advanced yoga pose, I would think. Yeah, so let's see. This says edgy girl power aesthetic. Okay, so this is almost like a I mean, it's interesting, like just got like a tube top. Yeah, this does look like a very stretchy yoga position. But also, I'm getting a dancer vibe, like a ballet dancer. But yeah, the foot here is completely turned out. The foot, she's on, like on point back here. But I can't tell if this foot is actually wrapped. It looks like I've somewhat embellished, or sort of maybe overstated the stretch in her leg back here, but not in any extreme way. I feel like this would still be achievable. But yeah, in my effort to be accurate and compensate for, you know, what I just said, where the mind is fixing and correcting for things that it sees. I guess the mind just... Anyway, you can overcorrect in your brain. And then you get used to it. And then you... well, you get attenuated to everything. Eventually, you just sort of see things on default. It's like me and like my messy surroundings or whatever. Like, you become blind to your own mess, but like other people's stuff, it's like, whoa, you gotta clean up in here. And when I look up here in OBS, I can see the thumbnail of the image versus the thumbnail of my drawing. And that's sort of a like an equivalent of like getting fresh eyes on the thing, seeing it from a different perspective. Right here where it's big and in front of me, and I'm drawing bigger than I usually do. Storyboards I usually draw very small. Just so I can be efficient about my time. But here it's very big. I get attenuated to what I'm doing very quickly. And yeah, some small errors crept in, but it's nothing dramatic. And then I don't want to forget her back arm, sort of just hanging there, a little bit limp. The angle of the waistband and the underside of the tube top, these are the clues that show us the direction right of these forms. I do like studying the more extreme poses. There's a lot of idiots out there who will look at an interesting pose and say, well, you know, it looks fake because the... People love to say stuff like this, like the, you know, oh, is her spine broken? Or is the, you know, the legs don't bend that way. People don't say that to my art, but I've seen them say it to, like, other people's art. As if it's not photorealistically rendered, or there's just a little bit of error or hesitation in the execution. There's jerks out there who will seize on that and say, up, we've got a novice. I see something that to me is to my uneducated brain, looks like a mistake. And so I'm going to be helpful and point out the thing that I think is wrong. And it's interesting if it's, even if people are just sort of being unintentionally unhelpful, it's that stuff can set people up. Not everybody is thick-skinned. I rarely get like serious critique and feedback that is negative, so when and if I do get, you know, like a serious like, yo, I think you made a mistake or whatever, it's like, I don't mind. I have a my my take on that stuff is like the audience is always right. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's like, it's, even if I drew something correct according to the photo or whatever, you know, this is an opportunity for me to learn something where it's like, okay, it's like, I know that what they're saying isn't right in and of itself, but something is in the drawing that makes it so that I didn't sell it properly. You know, my job as the artist is to execute so that there is no doubt in their mind that my work is incredible or something like that. And if I don't do that, then that's not really me doing a successful drawing, even if what I've done is accurate to what I intended to do. What is the thing that I can learn from here where I get it right next time? Okay. Get that. I don't love it's an interesting hairstyle, but like figure drawing wise, I don't there are things that are not particularly helpful, and overstated hairstyles, often they screen too much of the figure and or sort of distract from the pose. It's interesting what kind of will irk me in a figure drawing scenario. Like, you know, if a hairstyle is preferred, I think it's like a tight bun or ponytail. There's always exceptions, but like no jewelry, no bracelets, please. Definitely no shoes. I don't prefer makeup, or you know, it's just, that's like no earrings. But interestingly, like tattoos are interesting. I find those interesting to sort of a fun challenge to depict. You know, assuming they're sort of like in a complementary kind of. If it's just a bunch of weird tattoos, that's not as interesting, but that's interesting. Yeah, you know, I may come around on my earlier Pinterest dissing. I'm finding some of these now that it seems to sort of get what I'm looking for. I'm finding some of these actually high in educational potential. Well, this is interesting. So this is a... I mean, it says, I think people can be a bit clueless on how to maneuver the human body. How maneuverable the human body is. Yes, they are just... Well, but also, sometimes they're just assholes. I still get amazed by contortionists. Yeah, the incredible things that the human body can do are readily demonstrable. So it's like, why, I don't know, why assert your ignorance, or, you know, why someone would assert their ignorance, is sort of silly. But this is an interesting comment. By looking at the pictures, you can tell which parts were the hardest for the artist. Oh, this is being screened here, sorry. So this is I find that to be an interesting and probably true comment. If I could compliment the artist here, they've done a good job with their proportions, right? Like the head doesn't look too big. You know, the arms look like they're a good length compared to the legs, and the angles look pretty good. But it looks like what they could have done that they didn't do was use line of action and then construction and then subdivide the forms, and you know, the kind of stuff. This is a person with great figure drawing potential, because you can tell how raw they are. But they still did a good job. And you can, looking at pictures, you can tell which parts were the hardest for the artist. And I think we could be charitable and say this person did a really good job, but something here is sort of grabbing out at me. And honestly, I have a hard time with this part of the anatomy too, where the leg connects to the hip. There's just such an interesting collection of forms that put that together. And because our normal walking around human body experience is extremely clothed in that area, especially on dudes, and then you have hair to deal with and stuff like that, you know, it's just like an interesting and there's such variety too. It's like, okay, there's a pretty good example of the difference between how we see things between the male and female bodies. That's why you gotta study both, I guess. Okay, so we'll set that up. Do a quick study after we do a quick save. All right, again, very challenging, challenging line of action to deal with here. So you say you struggle with facial symmetry. Is that something pertaining to art projects? I think I do. I struggle a lot with facial symmetry. I think drawing a symmetrical pose is the most challenging. So by means of quick demonstration, because I saw a few earlier. It's the ones where it's just basically the figure is flat to, you know, you just see the person just standing there. this is kind of what I'm talking about. This person is basically symmetrical. The left looks like a copy of the right-hand side. And looks like there's a lot of AI on this one. But for the most part, this is a good sort of demonstration. This essentially, you have to get very close with your proportions and size relations on this kind of pose, because otherwise it just looks very there's a lot of room for error in a pose like that. Ah, here we go. Look at this. Line of action. This person has done a good job of okay, more like a hobby. I usually doodle while at work, since I will end up waiting for hours for emails to come full circle. There was a time when I was a assistant at a wedding video studio. It was like my very first job, to be honest. And it was like my job to scan and I've told this story before, but I'm not sure if you've heard it. It was my job to scan the bride and groom's like family photos to include in a montage that we would cut to music. And this is in like 2001. This is the era of something called Firewire and DV video. This was the cutting edge of Apple. Apple's return was just around the corner. They had OS 10, OS X, you know, that was all new back then. And I was like the young kid who kind of knew how to use computers. So I was useful because I could operate a scanner. And occasionally I would cut video, learning about it, but also cutting video. And then back then, the render times were insane. So, and you couldn't do any, like there were no real previews. So essentially I would put together a montage, like the long way. It was like auto cut wasn't a thing back then. So I'd put together a montage and hit the render button, and then I would have about 2 hours of downtime. And bored as hell, you know, and not really like, no YouTube back then, no cell phone with the TV, just sitting there in a boring ass, you know, the patience of the past will never be understood today. It's true. That is the, that is, I think, the greatest, it's not AI, it's just this, AI is a symptom, but it's a, it is just a symptom of the instant gratification culture that we live in now. Technology just went too far, and the creative tools are overpowered now. It's like hunting fish with a... What is this? Why does it keep going away? What's happening here? Why does that keep going away? Anyway, this is just someone else trying to demonstrate what I was attempting to demonstrate. I guess TikTok just does this, or sorry, yeah, Pinterest just does this. Well, look at these lovely things. Alright, I might have to entertain the idea of a redemption arc for Pinterest, because not all this is bad, and not all this is AI. And I do like seeing that other people are taking this stuff seriously, too. Anyway, being bored at a wedding video studio, but having access to like 100 pictures and then a photo album that the wedding video clients would give us, it yielded opportunities for me to practice drawing things. I have... Oh, here we go. Went all the way back. Yeah, despite all my shit talking, Pinterest has proved to be a good little... It's not the solution that I wanted it to be, but yet again, just like it was with like all my little assumptions about, oh, well, TikTok won't be good, TikTok is the enemy. It's the enemy of attention span, so it'll be the enemy of what I'm trying to do. But the reception I've had, even though it's like I've only been posting for a couple of days, it's been encouraging. It feels like people are like, yo, I'm a fan. Show us more stuff, you know? That's all I really want, is an opportunity to share. It's a continuation of a take that I know isn't unique to me, but I still have a perspective that's valid. Hopefully. And that perspective being that I and many others want to hope that the world of entertainment can return to a place that is a little bit more... There's an audience out there for authenticity. And cynical people will say that, well, artists just always traced and always did, you know, did cheats and hacks and stuff like that. And it's like, well, that's true to an extent, but that isn't an excuse to assume that therefore no art is legitimate, therefore no authenticity in artistry. You know, the real artists were always just a construct in our collective heads because we didn't have the technology to solve these problems, and now we do, and now it's over for artists and such. There are some who will say that is the case, and maybe for some that may bear true, but not for all of us. Not if I can do something about it. I think certainly it is winter for artists. I don't know if I can argue with that, but you know, maybe one last stand at Helm's Deep or something like that, you know. Pick your analogy. People love acting on purely assumptions and then make baseless accusations. Of course, it's just like the twitchy brain. No shade on Twitch, but like as if it was a reflexive, like people get their minds pinched and feel the need to lash out somehow. Of course, they are much more vindicated in their behavior than even 5 years ago. Yeah. Worse, there is no way to change their minds or beget them to at least behave better. It's it is a sad thing for me to admit that I have no idea how to like, I don't know how to convince. It's like someone else is like, I've seen it online where someone is saying, I don't know how to convince you to care about what happens to people, you know? It's like, if you literally just don't, if your position is like, you know, if what I do, if using AI gets me to an image that I wanted and I don't have to pay anybody and it hurts artists in the process, then all the better for it. It was a very sort of eye-opening experience for me to see that kind of... I'm not saying I see people aren't saying that to me or whatever, but where I've had conversations with people about, yo, you know, don't you think this application of AI is problematic? It's like not good, you know, try to lay out all the obvious arguments where it's sort of like, this isn't, it's like I get the advantages and the implications, like on an individual level, it feels like it's, you know, it might be your job or whatever, but on easy mode, you know? And if it gives you an advantage, then that, especially in a competitive world, it might be too much to resist it, especially if it feels, or the assumption is that all of your colleagues or competitors might be using it too. Really bums me out when I find out other artists are using it. And worse, like using it but denying it. It's just a very, very problematic situation. But, you know, I do try to be like, well, you know, if we, you know, get mad and vilify, it's like, okay, let's try to find common ground. I think that'll be more productive than sort of making targets of each other and stuff like that. So that's sort of been my assumption, and if I can't, maybe not so much on the stream, but because I do rant about it, but you know, it's common for me to encounter AI art or AI generated content for my clients, for instance, and other things, and for the most part, they sort of say sorry, not sorry for using it, but it's for them. It really helps them get their points across. I definitely don't. I don't try to voice any objections to them. I know their jobs are hard too. But the other part of me just sort of like wonders, like, do you guys, you know, I don't know, like, sure, well, it's like, where is your line in the sand for your conscience, you know? Would you, would you would you be fine with, I don't know, your kid using ChatGPT to write an essay and, you know, improve their grades when they basically used a big short, like, where are you okay if, you know, your next doctor passes medical school because, you know, they use ChatGPT to fill in the gaps in their knowledge? Do you want to be diagnosed by undereducated professionals? Like, certainly some skills being gatekept are a net positive, even if it's, you know, it's like, I want to be able to dunk, but if I had to use a cheat code enabled to be able to do it, I wouldn't assume that was anything that was good for society or anything. pretty decent study so far. Namina says, I love your art. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sociopathy is on the rise, which is a learned behavior. I think it's like it could be a slippery slope. Where, given... I guess, to a certain extent, I agree. But I just don't know if that explains it enough. I don't know. Anyway, I don't feel like I can not trust, but count on. I can't necessarily have the same faith in the previous models for doing business and making money as an artist. Those are certainly threatened for me, and I imagine it has to be the same case for many other artists. And then for younger artists who are graduating from very expensive universities with, you know, and it's hard enough to learn how to make art anyway when you are when you're in school. It's a very different... Art is not like math where you can just learn it and you get it. You know, it's or like reading. There are people who spend years and years studying art and going to art school and at like expensive places under amazing teachers, and it can be a very slow progress for them. So the risk in going to art school in terms of like return on investment, extremely high. And now there are... it's just this sort of like Wild West now, where a person who... a person might have decided to become an artist and enroll in art school at the beginning of the advent of like the whatever, generative AI. And now they are entering a workforce in a world where these tools are actively eroding any chance of them even getting a entry-level job. It's the same in many industries, of course. But I think art especially, it was all... being an artist was already like an endangered species, and then someone found a way to God, what is the analogy? Well, let's say artistic careers were an endangered species, and then this is just now it's like open season essentially. It's just... Anyway, it's like a massacre that they have so many fun elements hidden through them. Finish the job, sort of. Sort of like poachers in Asia. Yeah. And it's like, what? Where's the empathy? The punching down and lack of empathy for the situation of artists is that's depressing. So I have to adapt to the new world and sort of mourn the loss of what was there, what was so clearly. It's not like I ever thought of it as like a paradise, but like relatively speaking, the artistic climate, the potential for artists to make a living doing what they did and studied and paid money to study for and stuff like that, and invested their time and efforts into that was like the golden age, whatever, 6-8 years ago. Now it is completely on top of its head, changed so quickly. All right, so what I've done is just sort of doubled up these images on top of themselves. Since I drew them with a light gray pencil, essentially, what that helps me do is not get so hung up on the composition of the the pattern of light and dark on the image, because I can't. Like, if there's the image is backstopped to only go to a certain amount of gray, then that means I don't have to worry about whether the shadows are dark enough. It's just sort of like at a certain point, the shadow, it's really just about like, where is the light coming from, and then just make the shadow go in the opposite direction. After all of that has sort of been established, I like to go back and say, all right, let's take the same image and put it on top of itself and see what we get. And what we usually then get is this image that I would have wanted to draw in the first place, but if I had the access to make things that dark, I would have obsessed too much about it and made errors. Okay, cool. So this looks cool. Let me do a quick check-in on the old text message chains. It's kind of fun. My wife and kids are off to... They're on a train trip. It's like they're... My son's finishing up preschool. He's in his last week, or next week is his last week. Today they decided to do a fun trip to Santa Barbara. So from LA, they get on the Surfliner Amtrak train, take it up to Santa Barbara. It's a fun adventure, and now they're coming back, and so I still have a little bit of time. So they might not be here for another 2 hours. I can at least do a little bit of work on a different project. I think I might do that. It is a lot of fun. We've actually taken the kids up to Santa Barbara on a trip via the train tracks, and boy, you're a captive audience for about an hour and a half on the trains. It takes almost as long on the train as it does by car. Because they make stops or whatever, but oh boy, the Surfliner train, you can get into the sort of like whatever the drink they'll serve you a lot of alcohol. You can just buy a few Cutwaters or whatever. I know I'm constantly talking about alcohol, but I enjoyed my very much responsible, I think, imbibing on that trip, because you can essentially you can get nicely wasted and then pop out. You're on the beach, continue to have fun, and then take the train back. So it's not like you're driving irresponsibly. I guess but at a certain point, you do have to drive from the train station back to your house. Anyway, very fun to do that sort of stuff. Okay, these look like nice studies. Good job, me. Good job, us, for eating our peas and carrots, eating our vegetables. And now we can. Let's try some other stuff. Okay, so Pinterest, thanks for Pinterest. You've redeemed yourself somewhat. I still don't like the AI stuff, but seems like most people can kind of tell the difference. And the and there's enough real person options, or at least I can't tell the difference, for better or for worse, that this can be educational. All right, so we'll put that away. And now, what is the other thing that is good that I need to do that I haven't really... It's been difficult for me to have very good consistency with my streams lately. Some of this is due to life being weird, like just hiccups with social stuff. I can't always just stream when I want to. Often my kids are up late, or my wife is up late. I try not to stream when they are sort of like about. If I know everybody's asleep, then it's fair game. But if they're here, it makes it difficult. I've been working on this Metroid project, which is cool. And I've been making some progress with it, and it's in a coloring phase where I want to sort of keep up the coloring practice. I've been getting a little bit used to it's kind of like it's like a laziness somewhat. The gradient map coloring that I've been doing on some of my portraits is obviously very effective and quick, but it's a little too much on the instant gratification-y kind of stuff that I know better than to consider educational. And I think first and foremost, this is like educational for me. And if I'm just using hacks all the way through, I'm not going to advance much in areas that I think are important. So getting back to some of my earlier coloring methods, the intention here is to do a little Metroid fan art, and you can see I've made some changes to some of the lines and the designs, but pretty much settled on this. Yeah. And then the other stream, a stream I did a couple of days ago, added the Metroid colors. And then because I did a lot of the coloring past this point, I did a lot of it off stream. It's been a discussion in my Discord, but we don't... there isn't a good way of me to... because I can't stream on a schedule. I just can't. Like, life is too chaotic. Because I can't stream on a schedule, it's important then for me to have at least a little bit of latitude to take the work off stream. But then the question is like, well, how do I document it? Because I am trying to be transparent about this stuff. But it occurred to me that as long as I saved incremental states, I could always go back and at least explain what I was doing at what point. So that it's not just like, here's the finished image and you have to trust my word that I did it all by myself, without AI help and stuff like that. It's sort of like the whole point of the stream was that artists can make art in a way that is authentic and we can prove it. So then here's me, therefore, going through the steps and sort of talking about why I did what I did. And there's small things like here, if you look at this knee, I adjust the angle of it a little bit there in order to fix what I felt was a catch in the anatomy of the suit. And between this and this, you can see that I've added all these little potholes in the background and then the surrounding environment. And this is create like a texture of like deeply, essentially it's almost like a mental note to insist on committing to the texture in this rock that feels very primal. I wanted the setting is like essentially an evil alien planet, so it needs to look like something that is unwelcoming and inhospitable, and sort of the texture of like that kind of really ouchy, hard to walk on lava, or you know, that cooled rock. What do they call it? Like igneous rock. Igneous rocks. Pretty sure that's it. Cool solidification of molten rock. Yeah, it's this stuff. This is a great, I'll zoom in on this one. It's almost like pumice, but pumice is very, is it scoria? I guess pumice is kind of it, but it's like this. See this? Like this ouchiness, right? Is meant to be this, the background. And artistically, part of the decision making going into that was I want there to be a contrast of textures in this piece. The texture of the rock being extremely different from the hard metal texture of the suit, then further contrasted by the soft, squishy transparency, the jellyfishness, if you will, of the Metroid alien. So this sort of the contrast there would be super important. What unifies the scene, therefore, is the lighting. So the lighting becomes very important in the coloring, therefore. So we proceed further, and we've got... Oop, clicked it wrong. Okay, so clicking through again. Once I have all the base colors in, I use Photoshop essentially to reduce the brightness of all the colors, darkening it to the point where it as a unified piece essentially sucks out all the light that could feel like lighting. All we have left now is a very dark scene, something that feels unlit. Maybe it feels like the amount of light that is in the scene is what you would get from the brightness of just the constellation of stars in the sky or something. Not even like a moon, but just the not even like the brightness from the moon, but because that'll cast a shadow, for instance. But just the brightness of the stars in the sky is enough to be giving us the light that we have here. And then we start adding in the light. We've got starting here, I'm bringing in the impression of a cool blue, just mostly blue light, sort of ambient overhead. Section by section, because the blue light on orange and blue light on red are different colors. So bringing that in now. Oh, we've got a different playlist. Not sure what this is. Let's switch it up. Let's go back to some classic Zelda. There we go. It seems that everybody loves the Zelda music. Okay. Different colors. Therefore, it's, you know, we go through the calculation to figure out what color is appropriate. And then lighting for the background. Still in the very early stages, but we can see the scene starting to unify via the color and the light. And then just in subsequent passes, just getting it a little bit more dialed in with the brightness of that overhead. And then at that point, I was a little lost, but then I decided, as I often do, let's just backlight the thing and see what happens. And so here we can see the effect of some of that backlight coming in. And to a little bit, I was sort of like, okay, well, where's that backlight coming from? Light can come from anywhere, of course, but I mean, that sounds like a cop-out, but it's actually, that's the part that really gets you thinking about story, about how light can happen, how about story can influence light and vice versa. Knowing that we need to see what's going on, we need contrast, therefore we need light, therefore the light needs a source, so where is that light coming from? Now, here I've sort of like undercommitted. It's just sort of like a sense of light that is behind her and sort of rim lighting. But the question again is like, okay, you know, what is that source and where can we, well, let's think about it a little bit more. Not just the light is there, but like give it a sense of purpose. So the light could be from, you know, maybe they're in a deep dark hole, but there's a shaft of light coming down that is illuminating the scene a little bit, right? That's a start. That light could be coming from a sun, or what if it's something else? What if it was a little bit more akin to the light that you get from a spaceship with like landing gear? You know, it's like a spaceship that's like hovering or almost landing or something like that. And that's starting to make sense too, because Samus does have a spaceship that she uses to transport herself from world to world and stuff like that. So that is sort of like an obvious tie-in that also factors in with the story. And then if we just sell it right, we can... so here I've done a little bit of and this is just some layering effects. But it's really kind of selling it for me, where we've got, okay, something that feels like artificial light coupled with natural light. So the natural blue light that's coming from, you know, it's sort of ambient in the atmosphere that gave us the light that we started with, is now being contrasted by the artificial light from the spaceship, which is giving us this great backlit glow that is it's sort of saying that there's a spaceship or something artificial behind her without having to even show the spaceship at all. And the sort of like little bit of, it looks like there's atmosphere or dust being kicked up behind her, like at the ground level. Gives a sense of like the proximity of the spaceship being something that it's either feels like it's landing or it's coming in or it's hovering just above, because like a helicopter kicks up dust. Similar effect here. So now we've got a lot of great things that are sort of working together and giving us an interesting start to the story. It feels like, okay, I given some decisions we've made, I feel like there was a good roadmap of how to proceed and keep going with it. So that's where we are right now. And I will do probably, let's see, in 45 minutes. I mean, eventually I want to take a break because I've been streaming a while, but I'm still good. So let's keep going. Put aside the figure drawings. This is saved out. Say bye-bye to that. And this is good. Okay, let me move some of this over. there's a sweet spot to how all this stuff gets laid out, and I'm not sure exactly where that will be in the long term, but for now, I'm going to be experimenting. Okay. Okay, so the vibrancy and the contrast happening here that we see is via some of the filtering effects that I put on, which are not quite the real deal. We need to turn some of that off. What may have happened is I might have compressed some of these layers onto each other just for the sake of brevity. But then now that they're compressed, I want them not compressed. I want them back. And, oh, good. Okay, so you can see that there's an effect here. Sorry, here. This is a layer from an earlier version that later got flattened, but I want it back, so I'm going to drag it over into this latest version. And now we can close this. We don't need them both open. Okay, that's good. In these overdone, it's like they're more polished, if you will, compositions. I want to be able to retain sketchy aspects of the work. I don't want to lose all that impulsiveness and looseness. So even though this is here and it represents something that wasn't intended to be final, I might try to bring some of that back into the final when we get there. For now, it'll just serve as like a note that we want to get somewhere like this eventually with the backlighting. But the backlighting is something that we aren't doing yet. We need to finish the slow cooking of the ambient blue light up front. We need to get this stuff looking brighter and just a little bit more intentional before we are ready to move on to other light sources. Because the way I like to do it is starting with it's a game of patience, but starting with the least bright but still very important light sources first, so that they have a chance to develop, essentially. Because after that, you can layer in the more intense, the brighter light sources. And see, if you start with the bright stuff, it just basically bullies, that's a term I've heard, bullies the shadows around, the light and the shadows. And that's a shame, because what you want, okay, you're like, shut up. Here I am, max-plaining the lighting strategies here. You see, my medium is light. No, just kidding. Thank you for rescuing me from the precipice of douchiness. let's see here. The suit blue light. And everything for me, when I can, I like to have it on its own layer for maximum control. So we can see I can just turn on and off the effect of that blue light on the suit. Very cool. So going in now and selecting all the red areas, because we're going to do another bit of lighting of the blue light on these red areas. And this is it's like a somewhat painstaking process that sometimes I can say that I might spend more time on this than it's necessarily worth. But there are so many instances for me. In the past, I've run into so many problems where the hacky coloring methods, like the quick ones, those have a ceiling of utility. They do not just work they don't always work great. There's always some circumstances in which I'm like, oh yeah, I can color anything, and then you find a situation where you're like, shit, I don't know how to solve that at all. This method, which I essentially practically developed on stream painstakingly over the course of the last several months, seems to always work to get me out of the hardest, most challenging, complex lighting setups that I've had to deal with as an artist. Just stuff that I'm lost. I'm sort of in times of true panic and desperation. It is a sort of a foundational technique for me to be like, well, I know that if I'm called to make an amazing color piece, I have this to fall back on. And it's not instant gratification. It's quite the opposite, but it will work if I follow the steps. And I think making a point of demoing it is, I think, a good goal. So. I mean, I understand. It was funny that it didn't even occur to me till just now, but I do understand. Like, it is like a Friday night. Of course, I'm a loser, and my wife and kids are off having fun without me. But if you got things to do, you don't. It's like I'll survive if the chat is quiet. Certainly nothing. I'm realizing that my endless talking was probably something. I was like, oh, he wants me to respond or something like that, so he knows he's not alone in the world, and it's totally fine. I don't have to. I can use it to cooking dinner. Sort of. Oh, don't worry about me. Yeah, that's the sort of what I'm saying is good. I'm glad you are being productive on your own end, because I know that the content of my streams may be on the verge of dull at times. This is sort of an interesting geometry here in her mask. I've totally just sort of I've decided, unilaterally made a max decision to try a somewhat unique Metroid suit design, which includes the helmet. And of course the helmet needs to be distinct yet recognizable as a Metroid design. So how do we do that? I think I've done a decent job, but also there is some interesting geometry that I've introduced, and therefore it's like what I'm responsible for generating out of my own imagination. I can't blame anybody if I run into trouble. It's like I'm in a bed of problems that I made, if that's the case. But here I have an interesting sort of switch up in the geometry where if I've sort of designed or done this right, there is a sense of concavity, right? Concave is where it feels like it goes in, because it's like a cave, right? And then convex would feel like it's coming out. So the roundness of the top of the head feels convex, and then these little cheeky parts, these are concave. Boy, if I got that wrong, I'm gonna feel kind of dumb, but a 50-50 chance that either I'm a genius or an idiot with my little explanation there. Here too. And then all this down here, I'm kind of treating as if it's sort of in the shade. So not really adding much light to that. It's where I don't add light is shade using this method. Kind of why I think this is the best. It's the best method, is because it's the simplest. You really only do one thing, add light. You don't really do anything else. If you're adding shade, Danny, thanks for popping back in. Hope you're doing well, man. Hey man, I like that stuff you were posting on TikTok. I saw that. It looks like it was we were sort of chatting about it. It looks to me like it's getting good response. But I wouldn't know what qualifies as I don't know, real traction on social media. When I see your stuff on TikTok or anywhere, I always try to like it. You're getting views. I mean, I don't think that would happen if people weren't curious, or you know, that mean if nothing. I don't know if people are commenting. I hope they are, but if they even just people just looking at it, I think the algorithm takes as an endorsement. If the response isn't, I mean, you may be I can't say what you're feeling, but when I started when I had a few images finally put together and I started posting them on like Instagram and stuff, of the like Zelda stuff, I was this is like months and months and months ago. I was like, oh, my art is so good. I'm gonna post my Zelda art and it's gonna go viral, you know, and everybody is going to say, yo, Zelda movie director, you gotta resign, you gotta step down because this guy needs to direct it, you know, something like that. You know, it's the dangerous part of being an artist is having a strong imagination that can get carried away, and I was pretty much convinced in my own little brain that that everything was just gonna explode, and you know, it's like I was like, I should I was like writing the yeah. Oh, you've been sad about people stealing. I mean, you gotta. So weirdly, from my perspective, you. I'm like, oh, the fuckers are stealing his art, but they're not stealing mine. Like that's how I'm viewing it. But I understand. Like, it is a. I'm jealous that they're stealing your art and not mine. But I'm also sort of extremely sympathetic because that is like something. It's like bad, right? That's you know, when you take so much time and like personally pour yourself into stuff and then people just sort of abscond with it, like, oh, mine now, you know, it's like, no, I don't consent to that. It's very immoral for them to do that. You could argue somewhat that like me doing this with like Zelda and Metroid characters, for instance, is the same thing. If they're stealing, that's one thing. If they're making, just try to think of it as fan art for now. Very unlikely that they're making money from it, and stealers will always be a step behind from the real talent, or at least if there's justice, you know, they'll get their what they deserve in the afterlife. there was a sequence of storyboards I did for the trailer for The Last of Us 2. And these were excellent boards. Very difficult assignment, but I did a great job on it. And a while back, I shared them on Facebook. I put them on a storyboard art sharing site, and it was just like a group page on Facebook. It wasn't like any like special website or anything. And they received much praise, which was, and it was well deserved. You know, they definitely, you know, the art, the rendering, the storytelling, the work was on point. My drawing skills were well exhibited, and I was proud of those boards. And other people, you know, that was one of those early indicators that, you know, I was capable of impressing even seasoned storyboard artists, very well-established colleagues, for instance. Those boards, someone helpfully pointed out soon after that someone had taken those storyboards that I had posted and reposted them to their own personal storyboarding business site. This is somewhere in India, essentially, or Malaysia, or some place like that, where, you know, you can, where you where life is probably orders of magnitude harder than it is for me here. They nonetheless took my work and sort of put it up as their own, as samples of work that they were ostensibly capable of doing. And they stole it. They stole my art that I shared it in good faith that it was something that would be good for the community, and you could argue that it came back to bite me in the ass. But and I never really like kept up with it. I don't even think I emailed them and said, hey, take your stuff down. Maybe I did, but I certainly didn't keep up with it. And part of that was just, you know what, they can't do what I do. If they get a gig using my stolen artist samples, then they're gonna have a hard time explaining to a client why they aren't able to deliver what they said they could deliver. The real damage is like the reputational damage done to the industry when people who it's like, and this is like before AI art came around. So this is this was sort of an example of the problems of bad artists in the other sort of existing, sort of bad examples of art and artists doing the wrong thing before AI art is just people sort of being very dishonest with themselves. Again, I come back to this, but there was obviously a authenticity and lack thereof argument to be made in that situation. The person did not represent themselves authentically. They mischaracterized themselves as the authors of my work for a little bit of benefit, like a temporary quick benefit. They don't probably see it this way, or maybe it's not any situation where a person is able to slightly enrich their fortunes while damaging the situation for other people. For some people, it's a no-brainer. They're like, oh, it's like I can steal this and I'll get a little bit of benefit, and then everybody else suffers a lot. Well, good trade. You know, as long as I get away with it, then, you know, then I don't care. And by the way, you know, artists are losers anyway. You know, they're tell themselves anything they need to justify it in their heads. Artists aren't worthy of making a living. Art isn't a real job. Blah blah blah. You know, all the different excuses they could come up with to justify it, but just a small example of the trolls we have to war with in this profession. But if I could give you a word of encouragement, they steal that because you have the idea is worth stealing. You know, it's worth it. And they're jealous of your talent, right? You know, let your haters be your motivators. You know, you gotta sort of see it from a perspective that gives you drive, right? Can't let it get you down. But I totally understand it. It should, if you can, use it as drive, because you might think that like you can it isn't something where it won't be the case that this person, you should hate on me more so I can be more motivated. I mean, what if I said this, Danny? Your ideas aren't even worth stealing. Okay, they're not worth stealing. No one's gonna steal your ideas. You know. Think of how that sounds, right? What an asshole. You know. But it isn't true. It's like your stuff was stolen because it's worth stealing, right? What ends up happening is the energy to construct a false narrative and like make a lie. It's so much energy. People just don't have the time and patience for it. So it really is just like a inevitability that they'll move on and do something else. So it's just not worth your peace to fret about. And it's like, even if it was, the solution is the same thing that you're doing. Just keep making art. That's the only thing to do, is just keep making it. That hurt, but you'll stay strong. I honestly wouldn't encourage you as much as I do if I didn't think you were extremely talented. You just are. Like, I see a lot of even talented character designers in my industry that don't seem to have the instincts for the stuff that you do. The way you were showing us your older character sheets and stuff, and I'm like, these look as professional as anything I've seen. I'm not going to say they're like more professional than like what they have at like Disney or anything like that, but it is like in commercials and video games and stuff like that. Often it's normal to move ahead with something that is a work in progress, and that's certainly the work that you showed for those things are absolutely worth putting in front of a director to get them to say yes or no to and stuff. Yeah, so keep up. And, you know, I'm enjoying posting to TikTok. I feel like people are not as toxic as I thought they would be. Or maybe that just hasn't come yet. But we'll see. Yeah, doing the TikToks, it's actually well, for me, it's sort of been sort of a useful useful additional outlet to some of the stuff that I've already done. So like the hard work of making the art and putting together a time lapse, like I did that months ago for the Instagram Reels and the Google whatevers and Google Shorts, YouTube Shorts, to very limited success. So it was certainly no additional huge feat to say, okay, well, here's just another platform I can also post to. So then posting to it, any engagement on top of that feels like, you know, that's gravy. It's all benefit for very little additional risk, I guess you would say. And then actually the engagement is pretty good. You know, and it's closer to what I'd say is a target audience. What I didn't quite, and you know, I had hints of this stuff being the case, but I was hoping to not have to go to TikTok to get it, but where I am seeing an audience of people who enjoy sharing and learning about the art making process, I was like, oh, well, that'll be on Instagram, because it was like a personal bias or something. It was like, I'm on Instagram and I'm an artist, so therefore artists are on Instagram. It's pretty clear now that most people who are on TikTok, and that's most young people, don't do much Instagram and or certainly no Facebook. So whatever reach I'm trying to get on Instagram and whatever legacy platforms is just going to be, you know, people my age that are barely paying attention to this stuff. Like, it's not going to be. I'll probably find more traction overall on TikTok than I will on any other platform. It's come around quite quickly in my brain that this is probably where I have the most potential to grow the most quickly, given the backlog of art that I have right now. Like if I look at this, let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, it feels like I get a lot of nice comments. A lot of people saying my stuff is badass. And that's cool, because like that's the reaction I want. I feel like I have a unique perspective that is worth following, worth liking and encouraging. Okay, so I feel like I've got a good pass with the blue light on the red stuff. Now we just move on to the next one. And for the sake of keeping track and keeping things on track and keeping consistent, I do like to sort of tackle these color and light passes in chunks that feel complete. So I don't want to color this arm with extra blue light, but then not the other arm either, and then not the legs. I need to make sure that it's a consistent pass. If I can, keep a consistent pass throughout the entire thing, because I don't know when the next time I'm going to come back to do more art on this. It might be a while. So the smartest thing for me to do is to make the most of it while I can. Something that feels like there's an overall consistency with the way that the light is playing with the material on her suit. And it doesn't have to feel like it's realistic. Realism is like a subjective thing. What I think I will be happy, probably more happy with, is because like you can, like anybody can take like a real photograph, right? It's like, yo, just go outside, take a photo of anything. Like I'll take a photo of a rusty hubcap or something like that. It isn't whether or not the photo is realistic that makes it interesting. It's all about the composition, and that just means it's about light and essentially patterns of light and dark and subject matter and stuff like that. That's what makes something interesting. So if I'm creating a convincing sense of light and dark and space and texture, that is the most important thing. And if it creates a convincing sense of those things, then it actually becomes realistic automatically. That's all the realism you need. A lot of people like art because it's not real, you know? So that's my cop-out for why I, don't study metal rendering, for instance, when I could. Realistically, or real texture rendering and stuff, it just hasn't come up with for me as a need in my career. And so I don't know it, but I don't think I'm worse off for that. Compared to people who, you know, they do know how to render realistically, but they struggle then putting together a scene that's worth looking at. There's something about this feels metallic. Feels. I don't know. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself. The truth is I was excited to get into the Metroid fan art in large part because of the potential to learn and adapt to the new challenges with rendering. So instead of rendering like, you know, demons or monsters, I'm rendering aliens. Instead of rendering suits of armor, I'm rendering spacesuits. You know, different work, different things. Definitely share everything you have to TikTok. You have content for a while. Right, and it's interesting, the TikTok... It's interesting learning more about the TikTok editing tools and sort of like the... whatever, the auto cut and the way this stuff is working. It is... no, it's its own skill, I guess, is what I'd say. And it's very... you know, it's not necessarily what I'd say is intuitive for me as like a aging elder millennial. But it's not that hard, actually, to figure out. The stuff does work. It's just a different... It's like a different language. You gotta figure it out, but... but it's like I'm a... It's like I'm a refugee from the enshittification of the other platforms. There are these small details. Where all these suits, the way that the suit sort of fits together, the way I've designed it, there are opportunities for highlights here. This is like the space in between like two plastic Lego bricks or whatever. Whereas you might think that like in between two plastic Lego bricks that are fit together, it's just a line that is essentially a shadow. But if you get up really close, you'll actually see a highlight in there too, sandwiched in there. And I don't want to forget to include those things. People can sense and appreciate those highlights, even if they're not really, even if it's not obvious that that's what they are enjoying about a piece. Did I pick up the kids today? Thank you for reminding me. I gotta go. No, just kidding. They're off on a Santa Barbara beach trip with my son's, you know, because it's like summer vacation, the obligation for my kids to go to, like my daughter doesn't, it's summer break now, so she doesn't really have school obligations. So even though she had the option of going to sort of the free summer camp that they have at her local school, it was just better since my wife was taking the since my wife was taking the day off of work anyway to go with my son to their little field trip, because they basically took a train. My son's preschool class took a field trip to go to Santa Barbara, so that's their fun little adventure. I've been receiving the pictures that they're getting. It is very fun to see them having a great time all together. It's fun. We're going to miss preschool. He's going to be in kindergarten soon. Parenting adventure continues. Things just level up. It's like life is like a video game. Things constantly leveling up. Let me zoom in on some of this stuff so you guys can see. Progress is happening. Fun fact about this classic Zelda and Chill playlist is it basically exists in my head rent-free even when I'm not streaming or playing it. It's like fully absorbed into the working memory of my unconscious. So even though I've experimented with variety, it's like always there. Pretty good now. Okay, now we do what we do. Let's do the yellow portion. Six more and I'll have 200 followers on Insta. Post your... This will be embarrassing. for me, most likely. But on the off chance that more than 2 people are following, you can put the put your Insta in the Twitch chat or whatever, and it'll pop up. See, might as well see what happens if you do that. I'm curious if the links are, valid. You know what I mean? And then on the off chance anybody actually clicks it, that would be wonderful. And post mine while you're at it, and maybe we'll both get some new follows. It's a of all the platforms. Well, actually, X is probably the most humbling for me because literally, like, 1 person follows me on X, and then like the other 3 people are like OnlyFans bots that like even they won't give me the time of day. That's extremely discouraging for me. But but it's like once you accept the cringe, you can just sort of laugh it off and move on. And stream through it and find the Sorry, I was just looking at a text message. But yeah, the live streaming is it's fun. Obviously, that's how I've met artists like you, Danny. But the some streams are more populated than others. I'll say that. Okay, let's see here. Okay, doing the yellow now. And I've got the links don't work. Maybe that's a setting I could mess around with, but I'm sorry to hear that. They used to work? It used to be that people could post stuff. It may be the case that they don't now, but I didn't mean to... I didn't mean to turn off that feature. But it's probably related to the stream element stuff. Whatever the stuff is that I messed up. Or not messed up, but I tweaked. Okay, so we've already got a little bit of blue light on this little section. How do we add more blue light? Well, we click on the part that's lit by the blue light. And only me watching on YouTube anyway. Well, that was that's a 1,000 times more than what I had the other day or whatever, right? So. Anyway, we on the RGB sliders, just nudge them all up a little bit and then a little bit more for the blue, and that's how you get brighter and bluer. It's actually pretty simple. Yeah, it's interesting. I understand now that different audiences are audiences of different things, and one audience that might appreciate my finished pieces aren't really interested in the slow methodical process that goes into it. You know, they're like, okay, well, take your word for it or whatever, or they don't care at all. And or, you know, streaming is just not everybody's thing anyway. You know, it's hardly my thing. I'll admit I don't watch a lot of streams. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's part of why I'm not popping off on Twitch. But it's just true that I don't have a ton of time for it myself. So this is the compromise. But I am more or less committed to being transparent about the process to the extent that I can, and I feel like this is still worth it. I enjoy the feeling that I'm doing something to advocate the preservation of artists in society. And if I record these techniques, then maybe my children can learn them down the road if I happen to suffer an early departure or something like that. Heaven forbid, but it could happen. This has me pretty interested in doing more Zelda art too. You like how I did the chat? I'm glad you do. Since I did that, the chat has never been more quiet since I turned it off, and I don't know whether or not that it was actually a good thing or a bad thing or what. And it's probably just coincidence. You know, it is Friday night. People should be doing stuff. I would probably be doing stuff on any normal Friday night. It's rare for me to have time to stream on Friday. Even actually, my TikTok is less busy than it usually is, but I'll still probably post another thing later tonight. And yeah, it's like, I think obviously like adding chat, initially I was glad not to have it because, you know, whatever, people can't, you know, if you don't have chat showing, it's not, you know, you don't have to worry about what people are saying so much, I guess. But, that, you know, that all that paranoia was a little premature, given that, you know, you have to have people in your chat to say something bad in the first place for that to be an issue. Yeah, that looks pretty good. This is a little too hot right here, so I'm going to make basically give it a little bit more dimensionality by cutting out some of this. This is looking pretty good. No one compliments me like me. Okay, let's go a little further. This whole gun thingy, that needs light. Yes, yes. Activate this. Here we can see that all the flat colors were preserved onto a special layer that I can retrieve them and use that pattern as a selection area. Then I can go in here and paint into that area, but on a specific layer. Which will preserve all the transparencies. And a little bit of each, plus extra blue. Oh, that's an eraser. Killed it on the colors. Thank you. Feels like Nintendo did this. This is the that's the intention that I'm sort of striving for, is sort of recapturing that. Not just Nintendo. It was a sort of airbrushy, but like obviously the people who made old school poster art, old school video game art, cover art, just like all sorts of stuff. Like I think people like that. I think people would want it back if they could figure out how to get it, or knew that they could follow somebody and see that stuff again. You know, I guess that's what I'm trying to do. Is okay. Here's the honest truth: is I like it, and I want to know how they did it. And if I capture a few interested people along the way, a few fellow fascinated appreciators, then all the better. But the skill is worth learning just unto itself, in my opinion. And now that I feel like I have a lead on how to do this and how to do it consistently, I have no idea how they actually did it back in the day. Like, they didn't have digital tools back with, you know, whatever, in the early 90s and stuff. Like, digital art wasn't existing like what we're doing right now. What you and I are doing right now. They didn't really do it that way at all. So the tools weren't there. They were fledgling. They weren't sophisticated enough. You couldn't operate at high enough resolutions without just budgets going insane. Yeah, they did airbrush paintings. The medium was airbrush. And possibly other material, like, oh, I don't know, like colored pencil and gouache and I don't know. Stuff I don't know how to do, but and it would be, well, I don't want to make more assumptions actually, but the one assumption that I have made, which may be true or maybe not, is that I don't need to learn those tools in order to adapt those techniques, maybe? And I don't even know what techniques they actually did use, but it feels like I'm close. It's just like a digital version of whatever they were sort of figuring out for themselves. Now, you gotta be careful. The light can only go where the light can get to. And if I just start throwing light everywhere that feels like it has a top-facing surface, that's not going to be right. I need to be careful. The whole underside of this arm is in shadow. And that needs to be consistent. Nice on changing the thumbnails. Okay. The, like, for instance, every day I'm trying to tweak the dial just a smidge to something that's a little bit better, maybe? They say, he who teaches himself has a fool for a teacher, but I think that's being generous in my case. That's good. Save. And then the last little bit that we're going to do right now is just like this little in-between area. There's like gray in the joints. And that needs some love. I do wonder if anybody's watching on Twitch, but it's like, I don't want to look. I want to stay out of that habit. These guys. No idea. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You know what does matter is demonstrating the process, just keeping that consistent. Because one day, maybe I'll be famous for something else, and then people will also be like, oh yeah, look at all this great art that he posted. And I'll be like, oh boy, I'm striking it big. And then I'll find out that none of my videos are monetizable because I've got without exception other people's music playing throughout the entire thing, and yeah, so they'll make money, but not me. Well, that'll be good. That'll be good for them. We're obviously indebted to the wonderful music creators. Yeah, my kid, like, assuming that I die of like a heart attack, you know, within like the next couple of years, is probably what will happen. And then my kids may miss me eventually, and then they will say, but you know what? Dad's old videos, we can check them out. Or I'll watch them when I'm old, and like I'm senile. I'll be like arguing with myself in the retirement home. And the retirement home will be run by AI robots. And or they'll take all the archive of all my old videos and they'll make an AI out of that. They'll like copy my voice and they'll copy like me in the corner. And it'll just be like an AI version of me, and I'll be drawing generative AI, right? It'll just be like Join Max, the AI version. But the ultimate irony is that I'll spend the whole time arguing about how much AI sucks. You'll join when you're old. It'll be fun, yeah. Oh, that's an eraser again. Yeah. Okay, so adding just a little bit blue light to these little sections. You can see an eye. Yeah, that's what this is. It's going to be more subtle in the final image. Or more apparent, maybe, is what I should say. It's by now like a classic Max trope to have the like one eye directly in the middle of a composition. I've been doing that on like pretty much all the art that I've been doing. In fact, I'm not sure if I've had an exception to that. Almost, except for some of like the really wide stuff on the Zelda. But once I started, I pretty much kept that consistent, having the having an eye, or the middle of the composition is coincides with the, see, this is in the middle. So dead smack in the middle, we're gonna have one of her eyes visible. And it'll be subtle. It won't be like this crazy. Yeah, it'll be something like this. You know, maybe more obvious, but... And it won't just be that. There will be like a little bit of evidence of like an eye on the other side too. But this was the important one that I really wanted to make sure was in there. Okay, you know what? We have done a good job today. This is looking pretty cool. So let's do a fun little experiment. We're gonna bring back this little bit of light. We're gonna bring back this sort of atmospheric lighting. Look how cool this looks so far. So this already looks really cool. This is just giving us a sneak preview of what's to come. That's not it. So what I'm doing right now is I took a flattened, essentially a snapshot of the composition as it is, and layered it on top with, and now with blend modes, we can experiment with different kinds of vibe. Ooh, look how cool that looks. Holy shit. right? How badass is that? Okay. What the fuck? Okay. I'll have to edit that part out, whatever what that was. My lovely. Whatever piece of my email inbox at 3 hours and 20 seconds in. Lovely. All right, but that'll be edited out. In the meantime, this looks pretty badass. Will I add scratches for texture? Yeah, but what you can probably not see that well is that there actually is a good amount of texture just already built into the brush. That will have the effect of sort of like a metallic brush to the metal. And I might add some nicks and scratches to her armor, but I kind of like like I was talking about before, the juxtaposition of the contrast I think it's just super important. So I might not, I'm going to try not to over index on scratches on the, on her armor. I wanted to have a lot of smoothness and contrast. One thing that still needs to happen for sure is the glow coming from the Metroid. It needs to have a certain bioluminescence. It's not going to be that bright, but it's not going to be this dark. But this is looking neat. So this is probably too dark, but again, we can add a little bit more on top. Huh. That's way too dark. Look at that. That's fucking nuts. Like, this looks done, right? Like, I know it's not done, but like, you can basically, like, I could take this to a director and be like, what do you think? Should we keep going with it? And he'd be like, fuck yeah. You know, chase that down all the way. This looks like concept art. You know what I mean? So, you know, this is, it's like stuff like this. It's potentially a portfolio piece, you know? I impressed with myself with this one. No one's more impressed with myself than myself. Right? Well, I think the reason this stuff, I can take a little bit of like exuberance with the skills I'm developing. You know, I don't have any color training with it's like the self-taught in this regard, you know, and this is, I look at concept art and it's often not looking this good, you know? But, you know, that's me saying it now. Once I post it, I'll be like, fuck, look at all those mistakes. But I hope to, yeah, it's like I look at this and I'm excited. I'm excited to keep, excited to come back to this. It feels like I'm like past the midpoint now, you know? You can hear it now in the comments, yeah. AI, lol. Well, you know, see, if anything is gonna make this sort of pop off, right, it's gonna be AI allegations that are refuted, and then people are gonna be like, whoa, how the fuck do you do that kind of thing? You know, because I'll have this step-by-step process or whatever. And then people will watch the videos and they'll be like, wait, who's this Danny Gonzalez guy? What's this project he's working on? That's how it's gonna be. Be like, forget Max. Tell me about this flowers project. You know, that's how it's gonna be. they'll hoist you up onto their shoulders and then trample me on the way to like rush you off to the bank to make sure you get your billions of dollars. And I'm gonna be like, don't forget me. Don't forget me. All right, so this is gonna be, all right, my 50-50 is not working very well. I don't have a very good way of making this more embiggened than this. But, hey, I think this is looking dope. Look at this. Like, this is gonna be a cool screensaver. Not like a screen, like a, you know what I mean? Like a wallpaper. Or like I could see this like on cell phones or something, like a backdrop. Sometimes people like those, hold on. It's too soon. I don't know. It's bad, it's wrong. Let me try to see what I can do here. I don't know. We'll see about it. Maybe later. Nah, let me check these text messages. Because now I'm excited. Train departs at 6:15. So they're still not going to be here. You know what? I'm going to... how long have you been streaming? 3 hours. But now I'm excited to post something, you know? Because the reality is, it's like the Instagram algorithm, like if you don't post, like it just is like, okay, you don't exist anymore. So... and I don't know if I've posted anything there recently, and it's like I have to, or else it's going to forget that I exist, right? Same thing with all the others. And I don't think I have to do too much. I just want to get a little bit of a light on this Metroid. So let's try that. Let me check something super quickly. Super quick is boopy doop. What is the how much juice do I have left? Oh wow, I still have 60% battery in these. What did I just do? What did I just do? Oh my god. What happened? Holy shit. What just happened? Color. Oh, I turned this on. So I've been streaming for like 3 hours, but instead of stopping right now, which I was about to, and arguably it's like a good time to stop, but I want to, me no want to stop, me want to keep going. And part of that is just going to necessitate me doing a little bit more work here. Well, you know, I was doing the figure drawing in the beginning. I did a whole hour of that. And then I guess I did hour and a half or 2 hours of coloring on this. You excited? I'm excited to have something that feels like an awesome teaser. That potential is here right now. It isn't non-existent, and I don't want to not like it's in some ways it's like suicide to post on like a Friday night, but it's also sort of like a low risk experiment of like, well, what kind of engagement can I get on a Friday night? Obviously, the streaming engagement on a Friday night, not great for me. It's just me and you and Namina, and if anybody else is lurking, they're nice and quiet. Good for them, but. Without the ability to get myself excited, I'm a little. I need to live dangerously. Yes, exactly. There's very little I'm risking by continuing on. So this is an interesting thing because there are the Metroid is essentially a jellyfish with like solid particles floating in it. I guess it's like a living bubble or something with teeth. So it's not super clear what this is or what it's, you know, I haven't drawn or painted or lit a jellyfish before, and here I am trying to speed run it. So, you know, wish me luck, I guess. Yeah, and at this point, like, I would invite AI comments, or not A. I wouldn't invite them. Obviously, that's an insult, but it sort of spurs the question that this whole experiment is sort of meant to be a rebuttal to AI. So if I, you know, and I've had like, oh, AI allegations, but like it's a pretty quick like, well, here's the VOD, so you know, go fuck yourself. They don't persist the way that like, you know, it's a pretty open and shut case when I guess when it comes up, and then like people who see that it, you know, it's like, you know, they can sort of, you know, you can zoom in and be like, you know what, AI doesn't really do things that way. You know, maybe this guy's legit. That's the possibility of having a controversy that I could come out on top of would probably do, if it would probably, if anything, at least get more eyeballs on my work. So, you know, good or bad, I'm gonna try and focus on the upside. It still kind of looks good. And then and even on these, here, let me save my work really quickly. It looks alien, but like it fits Metroid, yes. Yeah, right now I'm just too much information, but I'm like fighting my bladder. Speaking of which, everybody drink some water. And save your work if you're drawing. Okay. Gotta stay hydrated. Normally, I don't stay hydrated. I overdo it with wine or whatever else, and today I have had nothing to drink. Rare sober stream, or at least as close as we get. Today, art is my drug. And then even more. And so you can see now, if I turn this off and then turn it back on, you can see the difference. It looks more integrated into this space, yeah? A little hydrated alien. Aliens need hydration too. This is usually a song I like to go out on. You can paint into the lines. And that might help some of these effects. It's looking cool now. Some of this light can catch here. Sort of present. It's looking decent, yeah. Decent? Ah! It's extra. It is a bit of a long stream. As Danny was saying, I impressed myself today. For better or for worse. No one impresses me like myself. But it sort of came up that came up because I brought it up. But the reality is, it's like I need something to post to Instagram, or else like the momentum and the algorithm just utterly goes away. At least that has been my experience with it. And I think that if I post like a sort of a work in progress, you know, sort of cover this up a little bit, but get my hand in there. Me, myself, and I, yeah. That's way too bright, but... This all needs to be very subtle. Anyway, welcome, Sextra. That said, I'm gonna have to be done very soon. Because I gotta get my kids from school. They're gonna close the school. No, just kidding. No, as discussed at the certain intervals in the stream, my wife and the kids, they're on a field trip to Santa Barbara. They'll be back any second now. They could be back right now. I don't even know. It's a little debate raging on in my head how much detail to put into these eyeballs right now. You made it for the stream. I'm glad you're here too. If not for Danny and Namina, I wouldn't even know if I actually went live. So I very much appreciate it. Well, hopefully even after fame strikes. It's subtle, but really gotta make sure these highlights hit somehow. Okay, so, okay, because I want to do a progress kind of pick thing. And we're going to do that via the old, do color dodge, overlay. Okay, so first we do overlay, then we do color dodge. So, copy, paste. we're gonna make that overlay. Look how fucking rad that looks. Right, and then we do it again. Putting this even darker image on top of itself, and we do color dodge. There we go. And so compared to earlier, where the Metroid wasn't lit up yet, need to put some trap remix music behind this edit. I mean, do you want to make a suggestion? That looks awesome, actually. Thank you. Darker, yeah, I think darker is the you meant for TikTok? Yeah, right now this will go on Instagram, not TikTok per se. But you know, it's a little tricky. I think so many ways to serve up content. It's gonna get more nuanced. I think I went too bright with the Metroid, but the whole thing is reading awesome at a glance, and you know, it's like that's the most important thing. So yeah, it's like why I had to go extra long was because I was like, damn, got to chase down what's happening here. It's for my it's for the good of my soul. Okay. And now we'll do a cringy for the gram, right? Put my little pencil here. Oop. Gotta load the UI. Load up the brushy. Doesn't look as good as it should, but we'll see. It's probably just, I'm like, I don't know. It's sort of a spoiler. It might be too much of a spoiler to just show everything. I'll take a few pics. It's not the end of the world. Oh, it's kind of cool to have the... No, that looks like I'm referencing it. I'll take a few photos. Wow, look at my skinny wrist. Like no muscle. All right. Hey, nothing else. Made a lot of progress today, and I really like how it's looking, so that's cool. Now again, that's the sneaky preview. What it actually looks like right now is this, but you know, we know how I do things. I'm going to tweak the shit out of it once it's all fine and done. Yeah. All right. Well, today was a good day to be unemployed, I guess. But honestly, I feel like it's like the distortion in the camera. I mean, we all know I'm a powerhouse, but this is the distortion was there. This distortion was real. All right, well, so my 50/50 isn't working. I'll figure out some way to make a thumbnail or something out of. I'll figure out a way to make a thumbnail out of this, and that'll be good. Whoa, what does this say? Oh, wow. This is awesome. This is the meatiest. Well, it's this one is the meaty one. This one's all limp. But all right. So this is good. I need a mental break and a pee break. Apparently, my wife and kids won't be home for another 2 hours. But you know what? This has to be done for the stream. I can't overdo it. I'll burn myself out, as they say. So this is good. I will say night to y'all. Do something fun with the rest of your Friday nights. I really appreciate you popping by, and I will catch you next time.